social slime, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. Seize the shit, force them air. Fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids. No one makes countries laugh to your face, fight and die. Cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social side, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. See their shit, force a bear. Fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids. No one makes countries lie to your face, fight and die. Cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again. Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Game On here on UCY.TV. It's April the 17th, and it is one gorgeous freaking day. I wish I had a headset that I didn't have to be tethered to. I'd be outside doing the show. And it's beautiful. And there's no planes flying today. There may be by the end of the show. A lot of times when I've done the show, I go out and there's an X over the house for some reason or another. But right now, the skies are nice blue. No planes in the sky that I can see, and it's a beautiful warm day. Looks like winter has finally broke. I was hoping Kathy Hamilton would be online today. I missed her. She sent me, I imagine she's outside doing some gardening or something right now, or getting the yard ready. But she sent me a thing here the other day, and what she's got it titled here is quite the resume, Peter Bradbury, LinkedIn. I didn't look at that yet. And it goes on and says, and no wonder universities are turning out more all the time, creating a common future. The Halifax Declaration and Action Plan, International Association of Universities. Now, this is really interesting stuff. A preparatory conference to UNCED of universities from across the world. Now, George Hunt did a video way back when, early 90s. Still VHS, and he caught on to this stuff when he attended the Wilderness Congress in Denver, Colorado, back in '87, which is the same year the Groh-Brundtland report came out, which Groh-Brundtland didn't write. They just stuck her name on it because she had been the vice president of Socialist International and then moved over to the UN. So it was a Rockefeller, Morris Strong, Dick McNeil production with Groh-Brundtland's name on it. But I'm going to put the link in. And I notice when I talk to university people, they really seem brain dead, seriously brain dead. And this will be why. I mean, we all know the schools are indoctrination systems. We know the universities are funded by the groups that wish to move these programs forward, i.e. the tax-exempt foundations and whatnot in the United Nations. This is a Word document, I think, or rich text format, but it'll open for you. And I wish I would have done some of this last night on the show on Revolution Radio, but I forgot about it till the end of it. I was still kind of ripping it at this transgendered nonsense. So I took a bit of a look at it last night, and it's really sad. You know, we have media, we have media, and Rockefeller thanked the media for staying quiet all these 40 years, and he said that a long, long time ago. So it's like 60 years now they've been quiet. Your media not telling you what the hell's going on. Now, this is a directive basically to the universities. And I want to thank Kathy so much for this. Kathy is just a brilliant researcher. She's dogged. You know, she reminds, I tease her sometimes. I call her the May Brussels of Canada. And she, just like May Brussels, is a housewife. And but she's a digger. And this is a problem. Not enough people do enough deep research. Because if you don't do the research, you're not going to know what's behind all of this stuff. And that's what's important. The politicians are of no, they don't matter. They plain out simple don't matter. The hockey players don't matter. The basketball players don't matter. The NASCAR drivers don't matter. The musicians don't matter. The arts in general don't matter. Because they're all set up to move the propaganda as well. And so they get you through entertainment, they get you through the media, but they never tell you straight up what they're up to. So this is a pretty interesting document. Creating a Common Future, University Action for Sustainable Development, a preparatory conference to UNCED of universities from across the world. Because everything's global, right? Everything's interconnected. It shouldn't be, but apparently it needs to be in order for these guys to basically enslave you. You think you're enslaved now. I suppose you are enslaved by the state, but I suppose you could call that freedom compared to what they have in store for everyone. So over the period of between the 8th of, I cannot blow this thing up. Damn. Oh yeah, here we go. Just to give me a break here for a second. Zoom, let's see here. Let's get this blown up a little bit easier for me to read. There we go. So over the period 8th to the 11th of December 1991. Now, Rio was in 1992. And the earliest I've found any particular city in Canada pushing Agenda 21, which didn't appear till 1992, was in 1989 in Hamilton, I believe, with the words Agenda 21 attached to it. So anyways, between the 8th and 11th of December 1991, the presidents and senior representatives of 33 universities from 10 countries on 5 continents met in Halifax, Canada. Do you read that in the newspaper? I don't think so. To take stock of the role of universities regarding the environment and development. They were joined by a number of senior representatives from businesses, that's your corporate governance, the banking community, governments, and non-governmental organizations. The meetings were sponsored by the International Association of Universities, the United Nations University, the Association of Universities and Colleges Canada, and Dalhousie University Canada, which also provided the detailed planning and secretariat support. At the end of the meetings, the following declaration was released by the conference known as the Halifax Declaration. Now, I've said many times in the past that if you want to see sustainable development, if you want to see rewilding, all you have to do is go to Nova Scotia, of where Halifax is located. Now, the city of Halifax doesn't exist anymore. They have the greater Halifax region, okay? And what they did, if you study Nova Scotia, it's a classic blueprint because Nova Scotia is basically split down the middle. And what they do and what they're doing here in all the provinces is they're shutting down the work that people had, the businesses people had in the rural areas. And once you don't have work in the rural areas, people start to move out, except for maybe the older people, maybe on a pension. But they all know they're going to die off at some time, and then it'll be rewilded completely. On one side of Nova Scotia, it's very expensive to buy a house. On the other side, it's very cheap because there's no work on the other side. And now the people are ditching their houses for whatever they can get for them on one side of the island and moving to Halifax, where the price of houses in Halifax is, it's burgeoning on the price of houses in Toronto. So it's a classic case of Agenda 21 and the rewilding program. So there's the Halifax Declaration. Human demands upon the planet are now of a volume and kind that, unless changed substantially, threaten the future well-being of all living species. Universities are entrusted with a major responsibility to help societies shape their present and future development policies and actions into the sustainable and equitable forms necessary for an environmentally secure and civilized world. Okay, and being civilized is being subject to. So now you're going to be, instead of subject of your state, you're going to be subject to an international governance body out of the United Nations. As an international community marshals its endeavors for a sustainable future focused upon the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, that's UNCED, in Brazil in 1992. So this is pre-Rio, okay? They've already made the decision that the universities are going to be one of the main drivers of this situation. Universities in all countries are increasingly examining their own roles and responsibilities. At the Tuileries, France, in October 1990, a conference of university presidents from every continent held under the auspices of the Tufts University of the United States issued a declaration of environmental commitment that has attracted the support of more than 100 universities from dozens of countries. At Halifax, Canada, in December 1991, the specific challenges of environmentally sustainable development was addressed by the presidents of universities from Brazil, Canada, Indonesia, Zimbabwe, and elsewhere, as well as the senior representatives of the International Association of Universities, the United Nations University, and the Association of Universities and Colleges of Canada. The Halifax meeting added its voice to those many others worldwide that are deeply concerned about the continuing widespread degradation of the Earth's environment, about the pervasive influence of poverty on the process, and about the unsustainable environmental practices now so widespread. The meeting expressed the belief that solutions to these problems can only be effective to the extent that the mutual vulnerability of all societies in the South and in the North is recognized, and the energies and skills of people everywhere be employed in a positive, cooperative fashion. Because the educational research and public service roles of universities enable them to be competent, effective contributors to major attitudinal and policy changes necessary for a sustainable future. The Halifax meeting invited the dedication of all universities to the following actions. So, while people are reading the newspapers and they know nothing of this, and watching the TV and, the comedies and the talking heads and yada, 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 They're completely unaware of what's going on, even though all of that media is shoving this. They don't come out and tell you what they're up to. Okay, so number one, to ensure the voice of the university be clear and uncompromising in its ongoing commitment to the principle and practice of sustainable and development within the university and at the local, national, and global levels. Number two, to utilize the intellectual resources of the university to encourage a better understanding on the part of society of the interrelated physical and biological and social dangers facing planet Earth. Number three, to emphasize the ethical obligations of the present generation to overcome those current malpractices of resource utilization and those widespread circumstances of intolerable human disparity which lie in the root or at the root of environmental unsustainability. There's Kathy. Feeding my kid while listening. You're doing a fine job without me. Bite me, Kathy. Once you're done feeding M, I invite you in here because I found a word in there, whatever, a phrase in there that I went looking up on the internet. And while this is a phenomenal find on your part, I went to the international universities or whatever. It just gets really bad. I mean, it gets really bad. So thank you, Kathy, for turning me on to this thing. So while you're feeding M, I shall continue to read. And that's wonderful. Maybe you can come in the show later and we can have a chat about some of this stuff. Number four, to enhance the capacity of the university to teach and practice sustainable development principles, to increase environmental literacy, and to enhance the understanding of environmental ethics among faculty, students, and the public at large. To cooperate with, number five, to cooperate with one another and with all segments of society in the pursuit of practical capacity building and policy measures to achieve the effective revision and reversal of those current practices which contribute to environmental degradation, to south-north disparities as the intergenerational inequity. And number six, to employ all channels open to the university to communicate these undertakings to UNSED, to governments, and to the public at large. This was done at the Dalhousie University, Halifax, Canada, on the 11th day of December, 1991. This is 2016, people. All of this crap's in place. You know, people started, we were yammering on about Agenda 21 so long ago, and there was people yammering about it 20 years before that. And, and then it wasn't till, I don't know, Glenn Beck or some other dick, a couple, 3-4 years ago, comes out and goes, there's Agenda 21. Well, and the only time you're going to hear anything from the media, when you hear it from the media, it's already in place. Okay? You already know it's in place. And people go, we got to do something about this. Well, here we are back in 1991 as they're putting it in place through the universities. So you got the students running around picking up wrappers, and we've seen all this stuff over the years, and you're supposed to follow their lead. Anyways, creating a common future and action plan for universities, following up on the Halifax Conference on University Action for Sustainable Development, December 9th to 11th, 91, Halifax, Lester Pearson Institute for International Development, Dalhousie University, 1992. The pamphlet is issued as part of the follow-up activities to the University Action for Sustainable Development Conference held in Halifax in 1991. Now, Lester Pearson was involved in international business, because your country is a corporation. And that makes these people treasonous, because they're breaching the trust of the people, because the people have always thought that these politicians represent them and their particular lands, known as a country, for the betterment of the people and those resources and everything else, which is completely false. It's always been false. University presidents and senior officials from universities, governments, the business community, NGOs from 5 continents met in Halifax to discuss the role of universities in improving the capacity of countries to address environment and development issues. An important and somewhat similar process had been ratified at the Tufts European Centre in France in October 1990. It had become clear to the Halifax Conference organizers that the UNCED meetings planned for Rio de Janeiro in June 1992 must be widely seen to be a catalyst for serious efforts to steer the world towards sustainable development patterns. It was also clear that the university community must be challenged to rethink and to reconstruct many of its traditional activities and framework in order to play a leadership role in a world at serious risk of environmental destruction. The conference was organized by the Association of Universities and Colleges Canada, the International Association of Universities, United Nations University, and Dalhousie. Support was received from the Department of External Affairs and International Trade Canada, the Canadian International Development Agency, which was a more strong game. And if you haven't, I encourage you to read The Cloak of Green by Elaine Dewar, which I think was, well, she followed him around for 4 years, up to Rio. And the background in that is very, very good. And people need to understand it. Even at this late date, people need to go read that book and see the connections going on here. Let's see, the Canadian International Development Agency and the province of Nova Scotia. If you read Cloak of Green, they've got all kinds of accounting pages in there to show you how much money was being funneled out of here, out of your pockets, through the Canadian International Development Agency, headed up by Maurice Strong. And it was Trudeau that put him at the head of that, I believe. And Maurice Strong came from Power Corp. I mean, it's all tied together, and it's ugly. And people got to wrap their brains around it. Mr. Ivan Head, past president of the International Development Research Center, the IDRC, served as conference chairman. Among those delivering keynote addresses were the Honorable Jean Charest, Minister of Environment, Professor Walter Kamba, president of the IAU and vice chancellor of the University of Zimbabwe, and Mr. John Ball, chair of the Canadian delegation to UNCED. In readiness for the conference at Rio, key papers from the conference are being published in a special issue of Higher Education Policy, the journal of the International Association of Universities. The detailed proceedings of the conference are being published by Dalhousie University and will be available after May of 1992. Anybody read any of this stuff in their newspapers? Anybody see any of their national news broadcasters bringing up any of this stuff? Don't think so. This brochure contains 2 essential outcomes of the Halifax Conference. 1, a follow-up plan of action as a basis for practical strategic plans for sustainable development, details which are now being refined and pursued by many of the universities represented in Halifax and by their converts. Emphasis is to be placed on concrete actions at home as well as the vigorous and strategic use of worldwide networks. Number 2, a declaration done at Halifax that provides a general direction being pursued by the universities involved. Emphasis to be placed on education and training, on research and policy information, on interdisciplinary work, and on a proactive role by universities for sustainable development. Those in attendance at Halifax Conference believe the UNCED process is a critical step towards an environmentally sustainable future and pledge their support. They invite their colleagues in other universities and institutions to help ensure the long-term success of UNCED challenges to create a sustainable and more equitable world. And as Maurice Strong said, he believes in capitalism, but only for himself and his friends. For everyone else, socialism. That's not in this document. It's just something I know from the past. So here's what they're supposed to do. We try to enlarge the activities of the university, not only on the academic side, but also in the action programs because of pressing physical needs and because of the ethical aspect of the problems of the poor with respect to the environment. The tensions between those who have been successful in the process of development and those who have been left behind is very, very serious. And that is, I can't read this guy's name, but he's the director of higher education in Indonesia. So here's the action plan for university. This plan model is a strategic in approach, not detailed. It is intended to provide a clear sense of direction for a number of core activities in which many others may be added and, of course, from which some may be subtracted. Examples of other possible activities which were originated at the conference appear in the recommendations which follow this plan. The plan identifies short, long-term goals at the local and regional, national, international levels. The short-term goals are those to be effective between December the 12th, 1991 and June of 1992. That's real. The longer-term goals are those which continue past June 1992 on said conference, which is the real conference. While this preliminary plan focuses on the period leading up to the onset conference, it also examines some mechanisms for designing longer-term strategies. Okay, this is an inside job, folks. This is a takedown from the inside. Okay, there is no level of media, there is no level of government, there is no level of education that is not involved in this. And yet, the vast majority of the population has no clue as to what's been going on. But then you got to go back to Warburg, right? We're going to have world government by consent or by force, basically. And what they're doing here is they're getting us to consent. Oh, we got to save the environment. People just regurgitating because the propaganda has been so thick. The local regional framework comprises actions which may be instituted within the university itself and those which require that the university interact within geographic region where it is situated. Within the university itself, the following actions might be considered in the short term. Unit focal point identification. The first step recommended is to identify a unit or focal point responsible for developing a sustainable development strategy for the university. Minimally, the unit focal point would be an individual. Ideally, the unit should be a small task group linked clearly to an administrative unit in the university for support purposes. The unit must work comfortably across the university system, so the working style will be important. It should not be a new center or bureaucratic body. It is simply to be seen as a small task force to help refine and launch these initiatives. The president of the university should work closely with this unit to demonstrate personal commitment to the process. This is UN directives. Okay, this is the body of people who set up the United Nations, directing the universities, what they're going to do, and how they're going to move this propaganda out into the general public. And that's a breach of trust. And a breach of trust, by definition, is treason. You got to go back to Cicero, right? Understand what Cicero was saying about being an inside job. Okay? And these people working within the system, like a Trojan horse. Universal Sustainable Development Strategy, it is suggested that within 2 months of the establishment of the Sustainable Development Unit should be completed an initial Sustainable Development Strategy for its particular university, i.e. by March 31st, 1992 at the latest. The emphasis should be on actions and results, not on lengthy papers. Such a strategy could have two time frameworks, one up until June 1992, and then a longer term one. Practical tasks. It is suggested that in the initial stage, a number of clear and operational practical tasks be identified for the shorter term each university strategy might include the following 8 activities. These are indoctrination centers. And then they moved it from there down into the public schools. You know, the little children sitting there watching Teletubbies, watching the windmills on the hills, mesmerizing the children as the blades spin. By the time they get into public school, renewable energy is the answer. These kids are already indoctrinated by the time they get to the school. Anyways, number 1 here, it says a meeting between the president and senior management of the university to explain the conference and its outcome and to distribute copies of the key conference papers, including the Halifax Declaration and the following up strategy. The group would determine the best approach for follow-up in their particular university. It is suggested this be undertaken in January 1992. The Board of Governors and also Senate it is suggested be informed of the process underway, and the proposed university-specific strategy should be tabled at the Senate once it is drafted. A meeting between the president, this is number 2, a meeting between the president and other university presidents within the province, state, region should be arranged to explain the conference outcome to those not represented and to encourage them to endorse the Halifax Declaration and to participate in this process. Some regional mechanisms for follow-up might well occur and should be encouraged. As suggested, this should be undertaken in January 1992. Obviously, it can be added to the agenda of routine meetings. Number 3, each university is represented and endorsing Each university represented and endorsing the Halifax Declaration might organize at least one substantial public presentation on sustainable development and the challenge represented by UNCED, at which time reference should also be made by the organizers to this process. The focus should be on the challenges and the content of sustainable development, not narrowly on the process of UNCED itself. The sessions... Where did I lose this at? This got away on me here. Okay, the sessions might include panelists from several disciplines: science, law, social sciences, arts. Obviously, the more ambitious the events, the better, but since this should not be viewed as a single event, but the start of a process, it is important to make a beginning. The suggested initial session is before the end of March 1992, so a maximum number of students can participate. Each university might encourage faculty to review their course curricula and also their research agendas to see how sustainable development might best be integrated in and between disciplines. This should not be introduced in a threatening way. Special workshops for faculty on sustainable development ideas might be considered as one way of approaching the situation, and that has to be started before June 1992. Each university might sponsor a series of university prizes in sustainable development linked to UNCED. They could be for papers contributed by students and also by faculty from any discipline. Number 6, each university might review all university linkage projects to explore how sustainable development elements are being or might be addressed. Number 7, each university might undertake to review its own sustainable development impact on the region, example from recycling paper to green architecture. This goes beyond a narrow tradition of environmental audit to include a proactive dimension. And number 8, each university might participate in the Sustainable Development Day linked to UNCED in June 1992. So you see how they do this, okay? All of this thing lead up to Rio 1992. The background of this starts long before, okay? And the propaganda is heavy and the indoctrination is extreme. And so when they get to where they want to get to, and the media is all on top of it. Didn't do any lead up to it really, just boom, here you are. And they just keep putting these policies forward and enslaving us. Anyways, these 8 activities only represent a starting approach. Obviously, the Sustainable Development Unit is that each university might add new activities, drawing from recommendations for follow-up to this strategy and adding to it also. Within each university, and the long-term proposals for the longer term are not identical in this strategic plan, but a number of ideas are listed in the recommendations for follow-up. A longer-term strategy plan for sustainable development should be identified as an outcome of the work of the particular university units for sustainable development and their work. A representative task force from these universities could be set up to design the draft for a longer-term strategy to be completed by May 11th or May 31st, 92 in advance of UNCED. It could be along the lines of this initial plan, i.e. some 8 or so strategy steps, with additional recommendations in an annex that can be routinely enlarged upon and ideas are exchanged within the network of universities. Yada, yada, yada. With respect to the interaction of the university and the local region, in the short term, each university might undertake the following. University presidents and representatives of the Sustainable Development Units might meet with the Minister of the Environment of their province to brief the minister on the processes underway. So here we have the universities meeting with the Minister of Environment to clue the Minister of Environment into what's actually going on. Like the Minister of Environment doesn't know. And this is kind of the setup, you know. They go to the university students and they say, you know, you should, you know, this is really important work that we're doing here at the university level, and we should include the environment ministers and bring them into what it is we're up to, as if the environment ministers don't already know, right? So the kids at the university are going, oh, that's a great idea. You know, we'll send a letter to the Minister of Environment where we can set up a meeting. And, it's just all set up. Similar meetings could be held with appropriate representatives of chambers of commerce, NGOs, federal departments, municipal government. The precise mechanism would vary from province to province. For example, while the initial meetings with responsible minister would be a special meeting, the other meetings could be through the mechanism of adding the subject to appropriate conferences that are already being organized. At lunchtime speeches that the presidents may already be scheduled to give to the Chamber of Commerce and so on. Each university might arrange to give a series of talks in schools on sustainable development. Each university might work with the Citizen Support Program linked to the Ministry of Environment and UNCED in order to contribute ideas and help make it effective. Each university might meet with local NGOs to see how they can work effectively together for sustainable development. Examples, see the ideas of the recommendations for follow-up responsibilities and cooperation with the Red Cross. Each university might meet with representatives of key sectors in the province, example, banks, forest industry representatives, to work out ways to cooperate for sustainable development. Each university might meet with local town city councils to see how they might cooperate in sustainable development. Now, Kathy, anybody that's followed this at all, is well aware that way back when they were really starting to move this into the local councils, that this is exactly what happened. Okay, it wasn't the local councils that brought this forward. University students would come and make a presentation to the councils. And the councils said, oh, that's a wonderful idea. Well, the councils the whole thing's already set in place, but they don't want to be the ones that initialize this. Okay, it has to be coming from the concerned university youth. Okay, and that's how they incrementally run this through the local level into the council. The councils are already set up. I mean, the books are out there, Local Agenda 21, how the council is going to implement this thing. But then you have the university kids and the school kids coming to the councils, making these wonderful little presentations. These little stupid indoctrinated fools in the schools and the universities have no clue what they're even talking about. They're just regurgitating this crap. And the councils and the chambers of commerce are sitting there waiting for them to show up. So if you were in university in the 90s, you got used. If you were in a university in the 60s, you got used. They use the universities to move the global agendas. That's what they do. That's why the universities are there. They're a tool. Okay? They are a tool for changing societal norms, if you will. So it's not really the government. The government is not the one that looks at that they're putting this in place. It's suggestions. And if you understand the Rockefeller Foundation, the UN, you find that it is always on scenarios. They build scenarios, multiple scenarios for a particular problem of which they invented. And then it's about suggestions, making suggestions, okay? So nobody's really liable for this thing, right? It's just this thing that grows on its own, although it's very well constructed and thought out by the big boys. And here we have, right now in America, more noise and more flack, and it's just really noise, about who we're going to elect for a president. Give me a break. Okay? That's the sideshow. The real show is over here in the background. Okay, it's the Artful Dodger. Look over here while I pick your pocket, and you'll never notice. And you'll leave thanking me with a smile on your face. Same shit. Where was I here? Let me see. Did I get buggered on this again? My computer keeps bouncing yesterday and today. Okay, I'm not even sure where I was at here. Damn. Okay, here we are. Each university might meet with representatives of key sectors in the province. Okay, banks, forest industry representatives to work out ways to cooperate for sustainable development. Each university might meet with local town, city councils to see how they might cooperate in support of sustainable development. National framework. The national framework comprises both comprises both actions within the national university community and the role of universities within the national fabric. Within the national universities community, in the short term, where there are overall bodies representative of national community and universities, they might be encouraged to establish a sustainable development advisory group, which would comprise a mix of university presidents and members of the sustainable development units. The groups should meet by March 92 at the least to review progress at the national level, following up on the Halifax conference, preparing both for UNCED and for a longer-term sustainable development national university-wide strategy. This could be an interactive process linked clearly with the various university strategies for sustainable development. A list of possible shorter and longer-term outputs appears in recommendations for follow-up with respect to the role of the universities within the nation in the short term, both individually and through appropriate national body. The universities might drop a number of activities in support of sustainable development at national level. And this feeds on itself, okay? Because as this goes into the universities, they're encouraged to find problems. Okay, of which you need to find a solution for. The problems aren't real, but they're encouraged to find problems. So now you have all the universities competing with each other to find a problem that they can solve. So it just feeds on it, snowballs itself. Okay? 4 particular activities are suggested. 1, work with the National Canadian Delegation of UNCED. Review the key public policy documents of sustainable development and write critiques of them, both to assist the sponsor, example, CEDA, the Canadian International Development Agency, which was Maurice Strong's baby, and by way of encouraging public awareness and interest, support national citizen participation programs through the provision of skills and advocacy. And number 4, approach the national media services, example CBC, which is our Communist Broadcasting Corporation here in Canada, to identify practical ways the universities can contribute to national programs on sustainable development. A longer-term strategy will need to be prepared by the national bodies. The international framework. At the international level, universities in the short term should make the following actions. Support the president of the IAU in cooperation with UNU to represent the international university community of UNCED. Establish an appropriate international council for sustainable development linked coherently to the IAU to draft a proposed mandate cooperation with the UNU and the Halifax Conference organizers. Endorse the ideas and assist the rector of the University of Rio de Janeiro in his proposal to organize a parallel university conference to UNCED. Push to have environmental education placed higher on the UNESCO agenda. Okay, and UNESCO is basically the global education curriculum, if you will. Promote the concept that a major international prize in sustainable development be initiated. And number 6, build sustainable development concepts into the international linkage programs of those universities. President and signatories to the Halifax Declaration, drawing upon the key principles found in the EMDI model. Insofar as these are appropriate, develop new programs in sustainable development between the universities at the conference. A longer-term strategy will need to be prepared, presumably the proposed international council might be responsible for this, and it would build on the UNCED lessons. And this goes on. The Halifax Declaration recommendations. These ideas were put forward by persons attending the conference and are not ranked, nor were they formally ratified by the conference. So this is your consensus groups, where you have a facilitator, and then they have their little round tables, and they write down their little stupid ideas, and then we put all this stuff down. And it's all, again, suggestions of which they can build from. So within each university, activities could include, and there's a pile of them here, identifying a unit focal point on campus to be responsible for developing a sustainable development strategy for the university. Number 2, completing an initial sustainable development strategy for the university. Number 3, a meeting between the president and senior management of the university to explain the Halifax Conference. Number 4, organizing at least one public panel presentation on the challenge and content of sustainable development. Number 5, a commitment to encourage faculty to review circular to see how sustainable development concepts might be integrated into their courses. Some form of support seminar may be necessary for this idea to work. Again, deception. Number 6, sponsoring prizes in sustainable development linked to UNCED. These might be for students, faculty, administration. Oh boy, I won a prize. I'm so good at this sustainable development shit. Number 7, examining all university linkage projects to explore how sustainable elements might be infused. Number 8, conducting an environmental audit of the university. Now, we all know about that stuff, right? You know, the universities come out of the gates first with, they're talking about solar panels, they're talking about LED lights and yada, 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 and turning the heat down and wear a sweater and all this kind of garbage, and then it just flows up from there. And although the government already knew, the government was well informed, I mean, Maurice Strong, for crying out loud, was head of CETA. Everybody knew what was going on, but they used the universities like they are, wise to what needs to be done, and nobody else seems to have a clue. And then the university people are all happy as hell when their suggestions are being implemented, even though the suggestions were already part of the template that everybody already had. Let's see. Number 9, participation in Sustainable Development Day, linked to UNCED, June 1992. Universities around the world could ideally agree on the same date. Number 10, examine the university in the context of the Green Plan or comparable documents in other countries. Number 11, examining existing research programs to see how they might contribute to more sustainable development initiatives. Endorsing the Talleries Declaration. Number 13, the distribution of the Nova Scotia Roundtable on Environment and Economy, and the Tufts University papers dealing with education and curriculum development to students and faculty for comment and response. Number 14, designing new and collaborative environmental and sustainable development research projects. I can just imagine being at this meeting. I got an idea. How about this? Number 15, meeting with faculty, students, and board of governors to respond to the challenge of how the university will deal with the sustainable development. Oh, that's a really good one, Jimmy. Well, and then Susie comes up with number 16, increasing the number of fellowships for students from developing countries to study in Canada. Oh, what a great idea, Susie. And what do you got, Alice? Well, I was thinking number 17, encouraging innovative additional technology for communicating environmental issues. Beautiful idea. Number 18, developing more partnerships with business industry for sustainable development. And number 19, developing more partnerships with NGOs, i.e. the Suzuki Foundation and all of these other outfits out there running around pushing the agenda in order to learn about their work with sustainable development, also as a means of contributing to it. Some examples using the Red Cross and Red Crescent as models might include the exploration, cooperation with national and international Red Cross or Red Crescent societies, and then linking university research to support the society's field of operations for sustainable development. Exploring methods of twinning university projects with Red Cross or Red Crescent Society projects to see how they can reinforce each other, helping and reinforce South cooperative projects with the Red Cross, Red Crescent. This is a Red Cross priority approach and is frequently put into practice, linking some centers of excellence with Red Cross or Red Crescent centers of strength. Example, the Bangladesh Cyclone Centers and Early Warning Systems, the Finnish Red Cross, blood bank and research, supporting research advocacy and training into the ever-growing plight of refugees, working with the Refugee Cross, Crescent, or UNHCR, encouraging facility to be available for frontline environmental project work with the Red Cross, for which advice is frequently needed, cooperating with the Red Cross in such fields as women and sustainable development, bringing, where am I here? Publicizing the students, winners of the Globe 92 Environmental Audit Competition and supporting annual events among Canadian universities, encouraging university libraries to purchase more documents written or published in the South, examining the realignment of existing academic units to address sustainable development, while the same unit, and this goes on and on. And we're almost at the end, but it could take a while, so we're not going to go too much further into this. I put the link in the chat. I will put it back in case somebody showed up later and wondered what the hell am I on about. But this is all the indoctrination of the university students from back then. Now, as we went along, later on comes Al Gore with the inconvenient truth and so on and so forth. It just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming at you. And had people been made completely aware of what was going on back then, we wouldn't be in the position we're in now. Okay, but the vast, vast majority of the population has no clue what is going on now. They had no clue what was going on before, and that's the way they like it. There's nothing better to manipulate than an ignorant populace. Makes it pretty easy. Now the students are quite ignorant. Okay, they were stroked. They were brought along that way. Oh, you do such a good work on this, and you understand the environment, and you understand the necessity to save the environment. And these bright-eyed little students, they don't have a clue. But some of them, and that's all they're doing, is they're just looking for some of them. They were saying, in this paper, they needed to build units, small units. Okay, those susceptible to this language, those susceptible to these ideas, and it will move it out from there. Like this is recommendations number 65 I'm on already, establishing a network among universities in order to share information about the greening of the universities. On a national level, university activities could include the establishment of a sustainable development advisory group within bodies representative of a national community of universities to review progress at the national level. And it has a bunch of this stuff for the national level. So it's all like Jim McNeil, interconnectiveness. We have to interconnect everything. So they move our programs for us. At the international level, university activities could include providing support for the president of the IAU, which is the International whatever of universities, in cooperation with the UNU to represent the international university community of UNCED. Establishing an International Council for Sustainable Development linked to the IAU to draft a proposal mandate in cooperation with the Halifax Conference, pushing to have local environmental education placed higher on the UNESCO agenda, promoting a Brundtland Prize for some distinguished international prize in sustainable development. Now, the Brundtland is the Our Common Future, released in 1987, just prior to the Rio conference, after the Halifax conference. Building into all international linkage programs of those universities present and signatories to the Halifax Declaration, a sustainable development component, and drawing upon the key principles found in the EMDI model insofar as they are appropriate. Circulating the Halifax Declaration and the plan of action as widely as possible in different languages to university organizations at national, regional, and international levels, appropriate NGOs, including youth organizations, relevant UN bodies, and the mass media. Increasing interaction between the university community and those UN organizations concerned with sustainable development, such as the UNU, UNESCO, and UNEP. Encouraging international agencies to use their requirements for information and policy development to build up local capacity in the universities. And I got a couple more here. Encouraging government to assign a percentage of external aid funding for basic education and training into sustainable development. And again, I would really recommend everybody go read Cloak of Green by Elaine Dewar. Okay, if you go to my blog, canadiantruths.wordpress.com, and just put in Cloak of Green, it will pop up for you. Okay, and you can read the damn thing. And I highly recommend it. I've always said, or I've said for years and years and years, in order to know what's going on today, you got to go backwards. Okay? And then people really, I do believe, understand it better when it's already taken place than reading it while it's taking place. So as a reference to how we got where we are, it is very healthy to go backwards and read what was being done to get us where we are. And anyways, this is, who is this? This is a couple of notes from people. This is the Anthony Cortes, the Dean of Environmental Programs from Tufts University. He says there's virtually no university that I know of where a person can enroll in a master's degree in environmental engineering policy or science and acquire a comprehensive, holistic view of environmental management. Generally, these programs are not only limited in perspective, but they are entirely oriented with controlling and remediating environmental problems as opposed to anticipating and preventing them. Furthermore, many members of the faculty consider the programs to be non-rigorous or soft science because they are interdisciplinary. In some cases, they're considered simply faddish. An additional feature of most programs is that they're almost always supported by soft money. That would be Rockefeller money, and so on and so forth. Why? Because they're interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary and therefore are not considered to be part of the central mission of the university. So they want that changed. And they did change it. Who is this guy? The Secretary General of UNSED. 92. Now, I'm not sure exactly who was the Secretary General in 92. I have to look that one up. Anyways, education is critical for promoting sustainable development and improving the capacity of countries to address environmental and development issues. While basic education provides the underpinning of any environmental and development education, the latter needs to be recognized as an essential part of learning, including basic learning. It is indispensable for achieving ethical awareness and promoting behavior consistent with the sustainable use of natural resources and sustainable development. To be effective, it should deal with dynamics of the physical, biological environment, and human development, be integrated in all disciplines, and employ all formal and non-formal methods of an adequate communication. And that's from Secretary General UNSED 1992. Now, No More Strong was the main mouthpiece at Rio, and he was, I don't know who would have been that at that time. And here we have the last thing, I think, in this list is Robert Page. It was from Robert Page, the Dean, Faculty of Environmental Design at the University of Calgary. Universities have to become leaders in putting their own houses in order. How many university presidents in Canada today have already committed themselves to an environmental audit of their university operations? How many university administrators apply the principles of green architecture to building construction? How many universities have effective senior managers with the term environment in their title? How many universities have a 5-year green plan, a strategic plan for 5 years or longer, in which a whole series of measures of sustainable development can be looked at in an integrated and careful fashion, and where students and NGOs are involved in the development of that plan? And that's Robert Page, Faculty of Environmental Design, University of Calgary. So anyways, that's the Halifax Declaration. And that's basically how they've taken us down to this point and how they intend to continue taking us down. This is where your green energy got its foothold really from. I mean, it was already planned in the background, but they used the students as useful idiots and the professors, who are mostly at this point Marxists, to push the program. Nobody's asking any questions here about what the hell this is about, just how we're going to push it and how we're going to make these little units of students to go out into the general population of the universities. Okay? Yeah, it's an inside job. And, people talk about how many people lost their lives in 9/11 as an inside job. Well, that was a couple of buildings and some people got killed. This is about the entire takedown of your nation states. Okay? This is about the entire takedown of your societies. This is about mass genocide. And genocide is just basically being the destruction of the society that was there. And it's all coming from the guys who set up the UN, and the guys that set up the UN are the guys that set up the international banking, they set up the Fed, they set up World War I, they set up World War II, they brought us every war since, they brought us every depression. And this is the stuff, this is the university students are working on behalf of these psychopaths, so that these psychopaths can get what they want, and that is complete and total control over every single resource on the planet, and then turn around you under the universal human rights to divvy out what they deem adequate housing, education, health, and so on and so forth to you. And your health is going to get worse. Over the years, when I was born here in Canada, Stan, my mother, who I was her 18th birthday present, who had no problem through her labor, it was a normal delivery. My mother, and I was born in 1954, was in the hospital for 7 days. Not because she was ill, not because she had an infection. Okay, she was in the hospital because it was that she should get some rest before she goes home to look after me. And back then, when you still had family close in, our aunts and that, grandmothers would come to the homes and look after the family until mom got home. We didn't have outside health workers coming in to do anything. The family did it. That's when we had a family structure. That's when we had our neighborhood. This is before it was all taken away and taken over. But my mom was saying that she was treated like a freaking princess at the hospital. They were given 1 or 2 massages a day. They were there to rest. And if you look at the original hospitals, that's what they really were, is a place to go to rest. I mean, if you were sick, you could go there, but a big portion of the hospital was about places where people would go to rest. It was like a spa almost. Now, my nieces and that go to have a baby, and I think about 4 minutes after the doctor slaps the kid on the ass, they kick the mother and the kid out the door. Why is that? Well, it's about control. It's about money. It's mainly about control. The money really, I think, is secondary. It is mostly about control. And this is how much things have changed, and it really sucks. So in that document, I came across, I think it was the IAU that I was looking at. And through one of those links, I found this is some of the funding for this kind of stuff. And I found the Fulbright Scholar Program, and I hope this is of interest to American listeners. Okay? Now remember, America wouldn't sign on to the League of Nations. All right? Never forget that. That was game one. That was to create the world governmental body and Israel, State of Israel. Both failed. Israel didn't like what they were offered. And the American people didn't see any reason to give up any sovereignty to anybody. They had fought a war of independence not really that long before. And it was still well in the minds of the people that they fought for freedom from Britain. And now the League of Nations is asking them to give up their sovereignty. It didn't fly. So they had another war, another depression. And this time the school system had managed to manipulate the minds of the people enough that they succumbed. They didn't want no more war. They lost too many family members in the First and Second Wars. And they signed on to the United Nations. And Palestine was given over as the state of Israel. And that's what the Zionists always wanted, was Palestine. I forget where they were, what they were offered, and I think it was in North Africa or somewhere that they were offered a place for the state of Israel during the World War I, but they didn't like it. They wanted Palestine, and they got Palestine after the Second World War. But here you have a Senator J. William Fulbright. Now, this is the Fulbright Scholarship Program, a program of the United States Department of State Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs. Now, let's see here, was a prominent and gifted American statesman of the 20th century. His political career of over 30 years in the U.S. Congress was distinguished by his unequaled contribution to international affairs, not national affairs, but international affairs, which is a breach of trust and which is treason, and marked by his tenure as the longest-serving chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He had profound influence on American foreign policy, and his vision for mutual understanding shaped the extraordinary exchange program bearing his name. With the support of the United States government and through binational partnerships with foreign governments, the Fulbright Scholarship Program sponsors U.S. and foreign participants for exchanges in all areas of endeavors, including the sciences, business, academia, public service, government, and the arts, and continues to increase mutual understanding between the people of the United States and other countries. His legislation establishing the Fulbright program passed the Senate by unanimous consent in 1946. And drew strength from the U.S.'s national commitment to development post-war leadership and engaged constructively in the community of nations. The first participants in the Fulbright program went overseas in 1948, funded by war reparation and foreign loan repayments to the United States. This program has had extraordinary impact around the world. There have been more than 250,000 Fulbright students, scholars, and teachers. Many of them have made significant contributions within their countries, including the U.S., as well as to the overall goal of advancing mutual understanding. So this guy was born in 1905 in Sumner, Missouri, was educated at the University of Arkansas, where he was awarded the BA degree in political science in 1925. He then attended Oxford University, where he received an MA degree and was transformed by his international experience. When Fulbright returned to the United States, he studied law at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. During the 30s, he served in the Justice Department, was an instructor at the George Washington University Law School. In 1936, he returned to Arkansas, where he was a lecturer in law. From 39 to 41, president of the University of Arkansas at the time, the youngest university president in the country. He ran for political office in 42, was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. He entered Congress in January 43 and was appointed Foreign Affairs Committee. In September of that year, the House adopted the Fulbright resolution supporting an international peacekeeping mechanism encouraging United States participation in what became the United Nations. And this brought national attention to Congressman Fulbright. So, the House adopted the Fulbright resolution supporting an international peacekeeping mechanism encouraging the United States participation in what became the United Nations, and this brought national attention. So before the end of the war, right, before the actual creation of the United Nations, the House adopted the Fulbright Resolution to join the United Nations, or that program when it showed up. In November 44, he was selected to the U.S. Senate and served there from 45 to 74, becoming one of the most influential and best-known members of the Senate. In 49, Senator Fulbright became a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. From 59 to 74, he served as the chairman of that committee, which is, of course, an inside job. And in 93, he was presented the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Clinton, who in who is George Bush signed this on, Daddy Bush signed this on, I think, to, not us, I'm not American, signed America on to Rio 92. And then after that, Clinton did his executive thing or whatever to make sure that the Sustainable Development Program went through everywhere in the United States. And so it's all an inside job. Your elected representatives do not represent you. That's the only really important thing you have to understand. Now, I got to get back here to actually, I'm going to stick this in here because there's a lot of other I'm going to stick what happened there? This freaking computer is bouncing on me. Okay, we'll put this in here. This is under www.cities.org for some reason, but it's a Fulbright Scholar Program. And you can go through this and see just how much your country, the States, is involved in this nonsense. And nobody seems to be telling the general public about what's going on here. So what you have is you have a Senate of treasonous dogs. You have a president who has the executive order ability, which makes that a dictatorship. It's not a republic, and it is not a democracy. It's a dictatorship, proven dictatorship, because anytime one man can make a decision that overrides everything else, you have yourself a dictator. You have a king, basically. So this is also, this is the International Association of Universities. Now, I really like people to go through some of this stuff because it only goes up, I think it ended in 2014. This was what they used to, it says building a worldwide higher education community. And there's all kinds of, there's more links in here than you can shake a stick at. There's more documents in here you can shake a stick at. There's more organizations in here you can shake a stick at, and it's all directed from the universities. It says here that the IAU, the International Association of Universities, was founded in 1950, excuse me, which is the same year, by the way, as the Senate hearings, where Warburg stated that they will have world government by consent or otherwise. So the IAU, founded in 1950, is a UNESCO-based worldwide association of higher education institutions. It brings together institutions and organizations from 120 countries for reflection and action on common concerns, and collaborates with various international, national, and national bodies active in higher education. Its services are available on the priority basis to members, but also to organizations, institutions, authorities concerned with higher education, as well as to individual policy and decision makers, specialists, administrators, teachers, researchers, and students. For more information about the IU, please consult the following resources. So, let's see. There's a PowerPoint presentation PDF from April 2014, which I don't think I'll look at right now. You guys can look at it. Here's one. IAU in a nutshell. Oh, this is another PDF. Let's see what it says here real quick. If it's going to come up. I will let people read this themselves. This stuff almost makes me want to throw up. It really, truly does. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I've been through so much of this stuff over the years, it's nuts. This particular thing I haven't seen before. I don't think I have anyway. And again, I want to thank Kathy for digging this out. Well, she dug out the Halifax Declaration, but I saw the IAU, International Association of Universities, written in there somewhere, so I thought I'd go take a look at it. And this is really bad because we haven't been privy. The general public have not been privy to any of this stuff. And so they've done it, cloak and dagger style, basically. And all of this propaganda stuff. Anyways, here's a link to the AIU. And you can spend a considerable amount of time in there. And like I said, it only goes to 2014. That's when it ended. And so now we're on to the, 2030? I think it is. So they're quite, I think they're quite pleased with themselves that they have managed to do this. So, action plans, they have sustainable development, access and success, doctoral programs, intercultural dialogue, internationalization, and that's what this is all about. Internationalization of everything. So we're left with nothing except a bunch of interconnected corporations that you can't get at, government bodies legislated by the governments but untouchable by the governments or those living on the lands they call a country. And it's like this massive Marxist bureaucracy, technocracy, transhumanism, whatever you want to call it, communitarianism. But it's the end of anything you remotely would have considered to be freedom. And that's why we got to stomp on this. This is like a bad virus. It's very much like a bad virus. And sometimes I get into a scrap. I don't start out as a scrap. In fact, I don't even scrap with them. But I'll be at Facebook sometimes, and like I did this thing with. There was a picture of. It's not his site, I don't believe, but Noam Chomsky, and so they were praising up old Noam there, and I just wrote in there real quick that in case you weren't aware, Mr. Chomsky is an inside job. Well, The poor little university students went haywire. They couldn't stand it. How dare you? Well, facts are facts, folks. Chomsky is an inside job. He's a Marxist. He's an internationalist. He's anti-American. So how could somebody like that have such a long career in the universities? Well, I think what we've been talking about today makes that pretty plain. The universities are there to take down the country from the inside. Now, the universities are rife with these depopulation professors, okay, which is the same program, sustainable development. There's too many people on the planet. That's why we have all this transgendered gay nonsense going on. It's all about depopulation. And why has this I'll get this right yet. LGBT, I think it is. And there's a bunch of other letters attached to it now. Why has that got so much prominence right now? Simple. It's part of the program. The universities are going out of their ways. Now they're starting it at the grade level that they want children to understand anal sex when they're in grade 4 or 5 or something now. They want the youngest children to weigh, you may have been born a boy or girl, but are you really a boy or girl? Do you really feel like a boy or girl? Don't you feel like, here, play with a Barbie doll instead of a toy gun? Doesn't that feel more comfortable to you, Jimmy? Doesn't it feel more comfortable to hold that doll than a gun? Even though you're born a boy, maybe psychologically you're a girl. Think of all the good things you could come of if you were a girl. Why, look at Bruce Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner. Okay? They're taking these people, and those who are the most vulnerable, they're using psychology on them and deception on them to turn them into something they aren't, through stroking their egos, by making them feel better with the old "we care about your future, we care about your happiness" crap. This has got to get stomped out somehow. We can't just keep turning a blind eye to this nonsense. The schools, if you've got a kid, you cannot, and I don't care how much you want to fight me on this, you cannot say that you love your child if you've got your child in the public school system. You can't go there. You can't do it. This early sex ed is being set up by pedophiles. Your children are being needled to death. Your children are being fluoridated into stupid land, of which we've all been fluoridated into stupid land, or most of us. Some of us doesn't really hit at us as hard as others, I don't think. But you can't say you love your child and have your child in the public school system. You can't do it. You cannot justify a statement like that. It's an impossibility unless you're completely brain dead. Get your kids the hell away from these people, ASAP. Do what Cindy, my friend Cindy, did when her son came home from school and got off the bus at the age of 12 and her mouth dropped when she went to pick him up. She sent a son to school and a girl came home. Totally floored her. But the kid didn't understand what she was all upset about. When she goes, "What the hell is with you?" What, Mom? Why do you look like a girl? Why you got all that makeup on? And the kid goes, well, Ma, it's gender reversal day. Duh. What's the kid know? And hats off to Cindy because that was the last day her son ever attended public school. Turned out to be a really good guy, too, by the way. And he doesn't wear makeup. And he's a young man now. And he's doing fine for himself. I want to thank his mother for getting him the hell away from these lunatics. Everyone needs to just vacate the school system. You think we don't have any power? We got all the power there is. Don't participate. Vacate the damn schools. We got all kinds of power. People run around, whoa, we'll shoot at. You don't need to shoot at these dicks. They wouldn't know why you're shooting at them anyways. Besides that, they want you to start shooting because then they can justify what it is they really want to do. Okay? They can you start shooting and they can scare the people. You don't have to do that. We can take this apart very quietly, very simply. And one of the main ways of doing it is just get your damn kids away from them. Set up a neighborhood school. Find a retired teacher. Maybe you don't even want a retired teacher. Everything is written down. Anybody can be a teacher. But find someone with some moral fiber to teach your children. There is no moral fiber in the school system. There is no moral fiber in the legal system, which legislates your education. Now, if we're going to be a nation of moral people, then we have to be moral. Then we have to stand by it. And we have to take ourselves away from this amoral system. If we just vacate the system, they got no power. You hear about, people being raided for homeschooling or growing a home garden in the front lawn and all this kind of stuff. The idea is not to back up from that. Oh, well, we can't grow a garden because Charlie got busted the other day. They came and tore his garden all up, so we can't do it. Wrong attitude completely. They tear up Charlie's garden. I want everybody on the street to grow a garden in the morning. Because they can't come after everybody. You put your foot down and say, no, you know what? Your regulations suck. We're not interested. We're going to grow our gardens. Period. Same thing with the kids. Get them out of the schools. Please get them out of the schools. I don't know how to say that enough. Just get them out. I can't wait. I'm going to try. I got a hold of a gentleman, and thanks to Duck, no one here in the chat here, for hooking me up with the gentleman, Michael Walsh. I had a nice little chat with him, last night for a bit before I went on air. We're basically on the same platform, I think. Very nice. We have a very nice chat. He's an Irishman, a writer, a poet out of Ireland, who's now living in Spain. And because we're 6-hour difference, the only show we're going to be able to really run that's not going to, be wrong timing for him will be on the Sunday show. So, I mentioned 2 weeks to him, not realizing that I think what I'll do is get a hold of him and try and get him on next week. I'm really looking forward to him. He is a contributor to the Renegade Tribune, which I'll throw in the chat. You can read some of his articles. And I am really looking forward to talking to this guy because I really want to talk to somebody that's over in Europe. People, I think we are in a way here in this on this side of the water. It's almost like we are isolated or willingly ignorant of what's going on across the pond, so to speak. I've said for years, and I know other people say this too, if you want to know what's going to happen here, just look over there. Okay? Give it 6 months to 2 years and it'll be here. That's the way the virus is traveling. And it is a virus. Make no mistake about it. It is a freaking virus. It's a virus of the psychopath. And we got to stomp it out. You know? I see so many sites now about the influx of the Muslims. Well, and I get people yipping at me going, well, why do you think they have to immigrate? Because we bombed the shit out of them. Well, why the hell do you think we bombed the shit out of them? But it doesn't I don't know what's wrong with people's thought processes. Well, we bombed them, therefore we have to help them. No. We bombed them specifically so that so the internationalists, the psychopaths who want to destroy our nations, and our nations are all part of the United Nations, and they've all signed on to the migrant programs, so they're stuck with it, these treaties and that. So you bomb the hell out of them, but then you're obligated to bring them to your country. How stupid is that? Well, it's all part and parcel of the program of the genocide. Now, they picked the Islamic State because the Islamic State is not state and church separated. It is state and church combined. And what is it they got to do? To get the final empire, they got to get rid of the United States of America. They have to get rid of that constitution, and Sharia law the Islamic State does not recognize the Constitution of America, nor does the Islamic State recognize the King James Bible. These are the two things America was built upon. But because the Islamic State is state and church together, inseparable, it is the perfect weapon to destroy the West with. So we got to stomp that out. And your politicians ain't going to do it because I don't care who you vote for. You can't vote. It's impossible for you to vote. The legal system states it's impossible for you to vote. You can only vote as a proxy for your legal person. And that ain't you. That's a fictional character. So you can't even vote. You don't I got to go register to vote. Sorry, you can't do that. You can only register your legal fiction person. So talk about being screwed over and used and deceived. I've always voted Republican. Oh, yeah, you're one of them right-wing lunatics. I'm a left-wing Democrat. We have two choices, Talk about divide and conquer. You'll never hear a politician tell you really can't vote for anybody. You'll never hear a politician tell you the truth that they don't represent you. They represent the state. And now they represent the international state. They can't represent you. And they don't represent you. They run around going, vote for me. They don't say, if you could do a corporate proxy vote for me, I would appreciate that. That would be kind of getting near the truth. They don't do that. So it's now up to the people to build a society that the people want. And this is our golden opportunity. The door is wide open right now. And if we fail to go through that door, we have got nobody. You don't be blaming Obama. You don't be blaming Bush. You don't be blaming whoever gets into this position of king next. You have no right to blame any of those people. All blame has to be on us because we allowed ourselves to be deceived. We were blind, purposely blind, because it was our choice to be blind. This idea of hanging on to government, this idea of we're so downtrodden, we want this guaranteed income, is a fool's game. And you wrap your brain around it. Now, I only have a little bit of time left here, so there's something that has really perked my interest, and I'm going to see if I can dig it out. I have been warning people about this place for a long time. And that is Iceland. Now, I remember a long time ago in Iceland, I saw a show, I don't know what it is, 25, 30 years ago about Iceland, about how independent they were and how they don't take the resources like we do here in Canada and just ship them out as raw at low prices. Because Iceland is small, and has a small population and has certain resources, mostly fishery, that nothing leaves their place unless it's completely finished. Okay, finished products only, because if you just go and catch a fish and just cut the head off and freeze it and ship it out, obviously you're not going to get much for it. But if you do all of the work to find a packaging, then every stage of that, getting it into the final package, is value added to it, which is value that stays in the country. And they compared Newfoundland, which is about the same size, about the same population, I think, as Iceland, same basic topography in that, and why Iceland was so independent and why Newfoundland was so dependent upon the government. And I thought, well, that's what we should have always been doing, is finishing our products. But now Iceland has gotten into this new realm here that about the bankers and this and that. So here we have Natural News, which is that Dick, Brian, whatever his name is. I see some headlines here. Iceland experienced with a jubilee of debt forgiveness, NPR. Iceland forgives mortgage debt to save its economy, Natural News. Iceland forgives entire population of its debt, Snoops.com. Did Iceland forgive the majority of its citizens' mortgage debt? Iceland, some knows that international opposition events about the Iceland mortgage debt forgiveness story. How mortgage debt forgiveness helped Iceland. Iceland for its debts forgiveness. Total U.S. media blackout. Now, Iceland forgives mortgage debt for the population from Alex Jones. These are all players that I'm mentioning here. These are all deceptives. These are all gatekeepers. These are all disinfo agents that I'm mentioning here who are putting these stories up. Now, I want to be very specific on this. This idea of Icelandic debt forgiveness, okay, when you look at it logically, Iceland is going to forgive all of its debt, and that is the debt of its citizens. Well, first of all, Iceland is not in a position to do that. Iceland is tied to the International Monetary World Bank. So the government of Iceland does not have the capacity to forgive anybody's debt. And if they did forgive everybody's debt, all you do is think a little bit. If they did forgive everybody's debt, where are they getting the money to pay it off? The government most definitely can't do it. So how is they going to do this? Iceland, my friends, is set up as this is what I've been saying for years. The whole idea of international human rights, where everyone has the right to adequate housing, food, education, so on and so forth. This idea of giving up the debt, and this is part of the big plan, is for the countries to see. I don't know what the number is now. I heard as high as $72 trillion is the global debt. Well, obviously, that's not going to get paid off. The idea was to indebt the nation states to the point where they couldn't ever get out. Okay, and then while that's going on, the Wildlands project and all of this kind of stuff, where they're driving people into the city centers, into smaller and smaller living spaces, is all part and part of the big plan. And then we will have some shaking going on in the economy. And that the fact that somebody's going to come out, be it the World Bank, be it the Fed, be it the IMF, be it the United Nations, be whoever, could be the Pope, is going to be pushing for to take this slavery debt off of the people. And the people will rejoice. At the same time this is going on in the background, they're pushing the guaranteed income, okay, which is all part and parcel of the Universal Human Rights Adequate Plan. And the idea is that the money boys, or the international governance body, will remove the debt. But people think they get something for nothing. You don't. Okay? This is the plan, and that is to say, okay, we'll get rid of the debt, and everybody deserves a guaranteed income. This is why they've been driving people into poverty. Right? They're shoving you from the top, they're shoving you from the bottom, and they're squeezing you in the middle. So that their solution to the problem of which they created, because problem, reaction, solution is always a problem they created to get to a solution that they predetermined, and the chaos is in the middle. Okay, the reaction is in the middle, and the reaction is coming from the universities, coming from the media, it's coming from the government bodies, yada, yada, yada. And the idea is to call the debt goodbye, and everybody will rejoice. But in the process, all resources will go into a global trust. So they're not getting rid of the debt. They're rebranding the debt, if you will. Okay? The debt's being paid off through the acquisition of all resources on the planet, of which through the UN body of international human rights, of the adequate distribution, they control how much water you get, how much food you get, what kind of education you get, and how much of it, where you live, what you live in, yada, 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 yada. So this nonsense going on by these disinfo agents pushing this idea that some miraculous thing is happening in Iceland, that the Icelandic government somehow has the capacity, which it doesn't, to forgive all debt of the peoples of Iceland, is ridiculous. And if the story is that the World Bank or the IMF is going to forgive all the debt of Iceland, well, it just verifies my conclusion on this. Okay? So it's the end game. So don't look to Iceland as this wonderful thing, okay? It is a deceptive thing. It's a very dangerous thing. Do not get caught up in the euphoria that I see on the internet about Iceland. Don't get caught up in that. Be smarter than that. Do a little freaking research into the background of these things, okay? And you will find that I'm correct. I do not have the audience of Natural News. I do not have the audience of Algie Jones. But I'm going to talk. I always talk to you straight. I'm always of the opinion that if I am wrong somewhere and you point out that I am wrong and can show me why I'm wrong, I will be the very first one to thank you, because that's how we're going to win this thing. Honestly. None of this pull you here, pull you there, pull you here, right? This is just another typical thing that was brought up. It's no different than Occupy. It's no different than the Tea Party. It's no different than Idle No More and all of these other things that they bring forward to separate and divide and take those people, mostly from the universities, who are so susceptible to this nonsense, to put them forward. None of these things, very difficult to have these, to build this, spontaneous reaction to something. These are all well contrived, well planned out, and launched. And like in most cases, like they called it at the universities, build small sustainable development units, okay, and take it out for there. So Occupy is built on the same system. You have these facilitator units, and they put it together through the universities and that, and then it's launched when it's told to be launched. So this Icelandic experiment, be very, very, very careful what you wish for, because it's not going to get pretty if we get that far. Our governments, our so-called government, are deceivers, they're traitors, they're pulling an inside job. They are exactly what Cicero warned us against back, I think it was, 42 BC or something? Like, knock your head on something hard. Like, what does it take for the people to understand what the hell's going on right in front of their faces? Boggles the mind. Absolutely boggles the mind. But then again, most people don't have time to do research. Most people don't have the capacity to do research. Most people wouldn't know where to start to do research. That's why when I'm doing these shows, I try to tell people, I read a lot of stupid articles, out of the newspapers and that, but mostly the reason I read them, besides they make me want to throw up, is trying to get people to understand what's being said in these articles and why it's being said and who's saying it and what the purpose of the article is and how to go when you see expert, so-and-so the expert. Well, damn it, take a couple of minutes and punch in this expert's name and track him or her and find out who the hell they're attached to. If you don't do that, you don't know what the hell the story's about. One of my favorite things as we get close to the end of this show, one of my favorite things was SCTV, the beginning of SCTV. And if you don't know what SCTV do, it was Second City Television, Canadian brand. And the beginning of that show, I think it was filmed in Edmonton mostly, but at the beginning of that show, at the intro into it, a high-rise building, I believe in Edmonton, You have people throwing their TVs out the windows. I thought that was brilliant then. It's even more brilliant now. Get away from this stuff. Block it out. Unplug it, shoot it, kick it, hit it with a hammer, bury it. Do whatever you want with it, but turn it off. People go, well, I watch the TV because it keeps me informed of what's going on, No, it doesn't. Well, yes, but I know what's going on, so I use that as kind of a backboard kind of thing to bounce the ball out of. No, you don't. You're addicted to the damn thing. Okay? You can't live without it. You can't use it as a backboard. Okay? You turn that thing on, it's made in such a way to get inside your brain. Okay? And so are the newspapers, and so is everything else. So the easiest way to heal your brain is to shut all that stuff out of your brain and don't let it in. Then you don't have to fight with it. It's the way it is. And get to the kids. Talk to the kids. Most parents have no clue what their kids are being taught in school. Absolutely no clue whatsoever. Ask your kids some serious questions. And you may have a hard time communicating with your kid because the schools are telling your children that you're the problem. That the state is really the good people, not the parent. I don't see that many happy kids running around anymore. And I thought for a bit it was just me, but when I talked to other people, it was the same opinion. What's happened to the children? Well, they're being abused. They're being mentally abused. You put your kid on the bus in the morning, your kid comes home late afternoon, you don't know what the hell went on all day. Your kid comes home, he has some supper, got to do some homework, sits in front of a TV and goes to bed, gets up next morning, gets on the bus. How much connection do you really have to your kid? Who's got the real influence over your children? You or the state? Well, the state's wants to turn your child into a global slave. Is that what you want for your child? Is that the future we want for all the kids that are growing up now? Got to get them out of that system. Everything's written down. It is not difficult to teach a child the right things. Once a child knows how to read, write, and do arithmetic, once that kid's got them basics and has got a moral compass, the kid will do just fine, thank you very much. Most kids are brilliant. Most kids want to explore things. By the time they get through these schools, they've been destroyed. Basically turned into androids. I can't imagine kids being in a school where there's a confusion about being whether you're a boy or a girl, or I feel like a girl today and I'll feel like a boy tomorrow. And I just can't even picture this. If you or I tried to do this, we would be in jail. And here you have this state getting away with this crap, and we're allowing it? Man, oh man, oh man. We really got to take, we really got to almost basically give our heads a shake and ask what the hell we think we're allowing to go on here and why we're allowing it to go on. I hear music, so what I'm going to do right now, because I keep forgetting this, and I like the guy, at 3 o'clock, Hal is on deck.
Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line, lower classes, social slime, they don't matter, genocide, sick from water, sick from air, Making
Tuesday
money,
at
they
7
don't
o'clock.
care. Caesar shit, force of air, fuck them back, it's only
I'm
fun
going
they
outside.
want. They shoot, they kill, they max out parade, they burn the kids. No
So
more
I
waste
am
time.
out of here.
Trees,
Everyone have a
to your face, fight, and die. This God forgive.